Black women, Black people in general, are underrepresented in the workforce in many industries. They're underrepresented at leadership level, but they're overrepresented in the criminal justice system. They're overrepresented in the care system. They're overrepresented in the mental health system. They're overrepresented in anything that is to do with an injustice, anything that's to do with poverty and socioeconomic failures and social problems. We are overrepresented, but anything to do with success, anything to do with an upskilling of mobility, like a movement through different classes, we're not represented. The social capital that we're having is lacking. The Ngozi Cadmus Show presents the bridge between faith, entrepreneurship, and leadership. My name is Ngozi Cadmus, and I'm a mental health and leadership expert. I represent the average woman and equip women of faith to walk in their divine calling, master their thoughts, and love themselves so that they can level up spiritually, mentally, and financially. Welcome to the Ngozi Cadmus Show, episode 26. Why representation matters. Look, let me tell you. If I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to tell you. No, for those that don't know, I will be doing my TED Talk on the 5th of March, 2023, titled How to Disrupt the Absence of Black Women at the Top of Corporate Britain. Shots fired. The reality of the situation is in the UK, because I'm going to talk about the UK, but it's very similar in South Africa. It's very similar, most likely, potentially in Australia, in all the Western countries. But I'm going to talk about UK. I'm going to talk about UK when I'm focusing. So if I talk about Black women, I'm specifically talking about the UK, the United Kingdom, Britain, right? In Europe, just to specify. Black African, Black Caribbean, Black other, also part of that would be mixed heritage of that. Not political Black, although that the term political Black is the idea of Asians, particularly Southeast Asians, but Asians and Black people coming together and understanding that the similar type of discrimination and prejudice and racism that they experience is similar from, you know, the colonial imperial masters as such. And when they were in the country, particularly in the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, you know, banding together under the term Blackness, the term that we were given, there's numbers in that and there's power in that. But I'm not talking about that, right? At the same time, I'm aware that other women of color will be able to understand, they'll be able to resonate. That's the word. They'll be able to resonate with what I'm saying. There'll be nuances because the angry Black woman trope is not necessarily a trope for certain parts of Asia. They've got the what do you call it? The more kind of docile, like Asian, some parts of Asia are expected to be a bit more docile. So they've got different stereotypes attached to them as women, but they experience similar barriers and stereotypes and microaggressions that prevent them from progressing to the top. But I'm going to be specifically talking about why Black representation at leadership level is important for Black women, for women of color, for Black little girls to understand, to see themselves, to see a Black woman at the top of a business that is predominantly white male is important for someone like you who is watching to believe it is possible, is to believe that you can dream and it can come true. The worst thing to happen is to have dreams that you know will never come true. Hope deferred, it crushes your bones. Having hope and hope never being realized is probably one of the worst things that can happen to a person. Les Brown said it, that the richest place in the world is the graveyard because many people die not fulfilling their dreams because their hopes were crushed, because they may have not believed they can do it. They were not ambitious enough because their circumstances may not have allowed them to, because sometimes the system stops them from doing so. We have to recognize that in a multicultural society, especially in cities that are multicultural, we understand that not everywhere in the UK is actually that multicultural. There are parts of the UK that probably they've never seen a black person in real life until they leave their town, until they leave their village. They only see it on TV. So I recognize that. But in London, in Manchester, in Birmingham, in Luton, in Bradford, in Leeds, anyways, in metropolitan cities with usually over 1 million people, there is a level of ethnic minorities that you will be interacting with, and they will be entering into the work. They're in the workforce. They're working, right? England, the UK has called the Commonwealth since the 1940s, after World War II, especially to rebuild the UK. The big gulf of Afro-Caribbeans coming in from the Windrush generation and then onwards, and also from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. So at the end of the day, we were also invited to come here to work. And then unfortunately, racism and structural issues have been in place for such a long time that we in 2023 are still in a situation that Black people in general are underrepresented in the workforce in many industries. They're underrepresented at leadership level, but they're overrepresented in the criminal justice system. They're overrepresented in the care system. They're overrepresented in the mental health system. They're overrepresented in anything that is to do with an injustice, anything that's to do with poverty and socioeconomic failures and social problems. We are overrepresented, but anything to do with success, anything to do with an upskilling of mobility, like a movement through different classes, we're not represented. The social capital that we're having is lacking. And why I find it terrible is because this is something that is the same 20 years ago. Not much has changed in terms of the research that's been conducted 20 years ago, and the same barriers that were in place for Black women are the same barriers in place now, just a different language. Language has just evolved. Nobody was saying microaggressions in the 90s, but and also because some things were more blatant then, things were a bit more explicit. But there was still a sense of the nuances that it's gone underground. Racism is still there, but it's become insidious. It's become a gaslit lit effect where you know that you're being treated a certain way because of the color of your skin and because of your gender, the intersectionality about being a Black woman. But then you're told that no, it's because of this, it's because of that. No, it's not that. Basically, you're crazy, you're lying, you're just being emotional, you're being an angry Black woman, you're letting your hormones control you. It's like, well, no, actually, this is what's occurring. This is my experience, but I'm being invalidated. My experience is being invalidated. What is it like to be a Black woman at the top of corporate Britain when you are the only person? You become the token. Why is it important that Black little girls can see their face being seen as a CEO, as the CTO, as the COO, as a non-executive director, as a chair? Why is that important? Because it makes them believe they can belong. They believe they can have a seat at the table. They believe they can dream. They believe it is possible. It propels them into action. It infuses their motivation to dream bigger, to go harder. It carries them through. It enables them to pursue goals and go into industries that they were not expected to go in. In the 90s, when you read the research, Black women were told to go into health and social care and go into more service-based, like go into secretary, reception, go into hairdressing. I'm fortunate that I never experienced that to a degree from society. The typical Nigerian, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an engineer, be a this. But I didn't feel society was pushing me into a particular direction. But I felt that society wanted us to just do music, to be good in performing arts. But what about areas that I never heard? I never heard of a Corvée. What's a Corvée? A quantity surveyor. I wouldn't have never been able to do it because I'm not good at maths. But the point is, like, what? When I met a Black quantity surveyor, I said, what? An actuary? What? There were jobs that I never heard of growing up, that they may not be an option for me because I was not good at certain subjects, but they were not even put on the table for a discussion to be had. Now, I was fortunate that I actually had options like being a lawyer, being a doctor. There were options that I thought I could do, just realized that I didn't want to do it, right? but there were so many other options that were not presented. So at 18 years old, you are making a decision in your mind for the rest of your life to choose a limited option pool. I don't believe in that. That's why I don't even believe you need to be worried about what you like. You need to be smart and strategic. Yeah, pick a good subject. Doing sociology and getting you into a profession. However, doing sociology enables you to have so many different theoretical underpinnings to see the world, and it maybe gives you 3 years of thinking of what you want to do. So it allows you that time and opportunity to say what you want to do. Because at age 18, are you really sure? Most people that studied at university are doing something completely different 10 years later. It's part of evolving and growing, right? There's nothing wrong with changing something every 10 years, every 5 years. Like, we do not have to be limited to one thing. We are multifaceted beings. God has created us as multifaceted, multidimensional human beings. We don't have to be stuck in one lane. You don't have to be stuck in one lane, people. We ain't got to be stuck in one lane. But yeah, representation matters. Very simply, why it matters is because we need to be seen, that we are visible. Being visible, being seen, means that we belong. It means that our voice matters. It means that our presence can have impact. It means that we can have influence. It means that we can have a presence and ensure that people that look like us may not have as much of a difficult time than they would without us being there. That is why representation matters. So when the next person that says to you, oh, why are you just complaining? Why are you just, look, if white men did not see other white men in this industry, they wouldn't go into the industry. So it's a natural thing to know, oh, it works in the reverse, right? How many, because of the way